And a very pleasant Monday evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and we welcome you into the WNBA 365 Network, your comprehensive home of all things WNBA and women's basketball related. Folks, we've got an action-packed show this evening, but of course, folks, glad to be with you folks, and welcome into the Calamac Sports Studios here in San Diego, California. Calamar joining you folks here from Central Hub this evening. Seeing an action-packed show, folks. We do have a guest lined up for tonight's program again. We will be having our good friend Ari Shorts of WNBA Insider joining us tonight during the block of programming, and hopefully could be joined too by Crystal Thomas. Again, folks, Crystal, as we brought up on our last show, of course, did go and see her mom today just to see how she's doing, and also, again, she's dealing with some technical problems as well. But, of course, folks, entering the final last couple of days and weeks of the WNBA regular season. But again, folks, we'll be joined tonight by Ari Shorts of WNBA Insider sometime in the hour to hour and a half window here this evening. But of course, folks, as usual, Facebook and Twitter and the live chat box are wide open for you folks at facebook.com/WNBA365, or of course, find us over on Twitter at WNBA365 or at Calamac3, or of course, follow Ari on Twitter. His handle is at WNBA Insider. Insider, though, spelled INSIDR, no E needed. And, of course, use the hashtag WNBA365, or, of course, write in your questions, comments, or concerns into the live chat box in the right corner of your viewing page. And we'll, of course, get to those when we get a chance and give ourselves a break in the action. Again, folks, we want to first and foremost, before we do, in fact, dive in anything in regards to games and anything, but, again, express our deepest thoughts and prayers and also condolences to all those friends, family, fans, followers, viewers of us, and to all the great folks that are in that right now are still battling Hurricane Harvey's wrath right now in Texas. Just the images have been not only disturbing and depressing, but sad to see as well. But of course, the good folks in Texas, of course, our buddy Marquez Anderson and all the folks over at Project Spurs, Stephen Anderson, all those guys. And again, we hope for the best for all you guys and everything else included. Also, folks, been great though to see a lot of those, a lot of the athletes in Texas, either J.J. Watt with the Texans, or a lot of these other athletes that are in the area, of course, either with GoFundMe accounts or what have you, of course, trying to raise money for these victims. Of course, folks, if you have a chance or if you can do so, of course, donate to the American Red Cross. Just text the number to send over a $10 donation. I've seen a lot of a lot of media members too in baseball. Across the sports world, folks, and also in case you're wondering about anything in regards to sports-wise, the Cowboys and Texans have already moved their preseason game to Dallas out of the path of the storm that was scheduled for Houston. The Rangers and Astros in baseball moving their series starting Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday over to Tampa Bay, Florida to play at Tropicana Field to get away from there. And folks, I think, though, that is, again, we will, of course, get into the games momentarily, but I think, though, that obviously – we look to sports as an outlet either from politics, from the economy, from what's going on in the world, and also in wake of tragic events. Either if you look back at 9/11, you look back at other events that have gone on in history, but we use sports as our avenue or our escape route away from what, of course, has been traumatizing or has traumatized many, many people. With that, though, folks, we will now get back on track as we do welcome in tonight's guest, our good buddy Ari Shorts of WNBA Insider. Ari, if you can hear us, man, first and foremost, buddy, thanks very much for coming on the program tonight. We admire your work from the network, but how's it going tonight, man? And good to see you.
Appreciate it. Good. I'm traveling out in California, but honored to have a chance to be here, so had to make it.
And Ari, first, again, folks, Ari Shorts of WNBA Insider. Again, folks, please shoot him a follow if you have not yet. His handle is at WNBA Insider, but again, scratch off the E. It's INSIDR. And Ari, I mean, we followed each other for a long time. I've gone to the site, read a lot of good stuff. And Ari, somewhat, both of us in a very small capacity, trying our best, I guess, as not just women's basketball fans, but somewhat trying our best to, I guess, get this league up and get the sport, of course, that has down-to-earth athletes and has an amazing product. Ari, what got you inspired, I guess, to start your blog center and also start your Twitter account about 2 or 3 years ago?
So it was really interesting. Big fan of basketball, obviously, growing up. And one thing led to another. Big Timberwolves fan. When KG left, there was this realization that I wanted to support a team that not only was going to win, because everybody wants to support a team that wins, but also a team that cared about the athletes. And, with KG, I don't know if people are familiar with it, he stayed with the team a lot longer than he should have for his own good, but he was devoted to the team. And I saw a lot of that when it came to a lot of the Minnesota Lynx players. So I started to go. I have 2 younger sisters. I was raised by a single mom, basically. So always a strong female representative, and I wanted to show, like, you guys can be amazing athletes. To my younger sisters, started to go to the games, and I was blown away. Why aren't more people here? And I started watching it more. People started giving me crap for it. You know, oh, it's not the NBA. And I was like, honestly, you can give me a great NBA ticket, and I will turn that down for a much worse WNBA ticket. And that's just how I feel. I would pay to watch a WNBA game. I would never pay to see an NBA game. And I'm not even talking about the off-the-court stuff. On the court, I truly, personally believe it is a better product. One thing led to another, and, you know, being a Minnesota sports fan, you want to support a team that wins, and the only team that doesn't lose every game in the last seconds, the Minnesota Lynx.
All right, it could be worse, man. You're in my home state. You could be living in my hometown and rooting for the Padres or seeing the Chargers leave after 56 years, man. So I get where you're coming from, man. No questions asked. And I guess, Ari, when and somewhat again, you know, because I started this network 3 years ago as a college broadcasting project when I was still going through school. And of course, you know, hearing, you know, the pros and cons, I guess, from both sides of the aisle. But Ari, I guess when you started this and somewhat, you know, either with me or with other people that you saw that were WNBA fans, I guess, what was the main, outside of course, going and attending these games at Target Center, XL, or wherever you've gone to see the Lynx play games in the recent years, but I guess not just, you know, supporting them, but also what were you trying to accomplish, though, I guess, when you first started WNBA Insider, as mentioned again about 2-3 years ago? So
when I first started, it was much of a thing that I realized I wanted to be a bigger fan of not just the Lynx, but the league. And there was a serious lack of coverage. So me, somebody who really wanted to be part of it, couldn't find the information. And I thought to myself, well, if I can't find the information, I'm spending a good amount of time online searching for the information and searching for the stuff. Then how's this random person who's been to one WNBA game and can't decide if they want to be a fan, how are they going to be a fan? So I said, all right, I'm going to start a Twitter account. And, you know, for the first year, it was just retweets, you know, me just being a passionate fan saying, you suck, or like, this is the worst play ever, or why is this happening? And I started to see that there is an amazing community online for WNBA fans who have the same problems that I'm sure you went through also, saying, hey, I want more information on this, and I think it's absurd. You know, I saw yesterday or 2 days ago, someone tweeted out 5 things the league could do to make it better next year. And on that list, injury report, you know, give us a heads up of the starting lineup. Every team has to 60 minutes before tip-off minimum. Support the teams being more active in social media and getting more WNBA gear. And I saw that. I'm like, that's exactly it. These aren't things that I believe are that they don't deserve. These are things that people have fought for. This is a good product. And as a professional sports league, they deserve to have these things.
Absolutely. Again, folks, joined tonight by Ari Shorts, our good buddy from WNBA Insider. Again, folks, shoot him a follow if you can. Again, it's at WNBA Insider, but again, no E necessary in Ari's handle, or find him on the web too, WNBAinsider.com. One quick comment, Ari, from our good buddy Todd Mintz in regards to what he said about comparing somewhat apples to oranges about the W and the NBA. He said, cannot agree more. I have League Pass and have watched 90% of all the games. Never do it for the NBA. Either. So obviously you and him are in the same boat.
Oh yeah.
All right. Let's jump into some actual talk now. So players of the week were announced today by the WNBA around 2 o'clock local time today. For the 27th time this season, Tina Charles wins it for the New York Liberty. For the Eastern Conference, and Candace Parker for the LA Sparks in the Western Conference. Both players leading their teams to perfect weeks 3-0. So Ari, I guess we'll start with Tina Charles first. Now again, the Liberty have somewhat had a late season surge, 8 straight wins, and now back right now in the running for a potential 1-round bye to the postseason party. And Ari, though, I don't know, though, man, but we've talked about this, though, for many days here, the past couple of weeks on the program, has been, okay, so Tina Charles is having all this great individual success so far this season.
Like she always does.
Exactly, but where is the other production? And also, was this leading towards another perhaps first-round or playoff exit for New York? But Ari, though, even with that, I mean, you know, winning this award 27 times is amazing. I mean, you know, for 27 weeks out of the season, or 27 times, I should say, you know, Charles brought her lunch pail to work every day and led her team to success. Ari, what do you make about TC winning this award again for Player of the Week?
I think it's amazing. She obviously gets a lot of accolades. Everybody knows who she is and what her name is. And obviously, as you said, the big problem with their team is, can they put the proper pieces around her to make it not the Tina Charles show, but the New York Liberty show? And it's been amazing what she's done. But again, like you said, they need more. They need more production. Last year was embarrassing, their playoff performance. The beginning of the season has been embarrassing. I think it's one of those things. It's almost, I hate comparing WNBA athletes to other sports, but Barry Sanders, where an amazing athlete, an amazing person on a team that never reaches, to that level of that player. And at a certain point, you got to start to think, does she think about a different team for the last leg of her career? Or I'm not saying she's in the last leg, but, you got to start thinking that at some point. She's been on the team. She's getting, it's 27 times now. She's gotten these great awards, and she's gotten other great awards too. At a certain point, you got to have that little voice in your head that's saying, am I the problem, or is something else on this team the problem?
Ari, I look at it this way. I mean, if the Tina Charles show was on Broadway, it would probably be up there with The Lion King, maybe Cinderella and Kinky Boots, maybe. But I mean, again, 27 times. I mean, that is an amazing accomplishment, and also leading the Liberty to a 3-0 week. And for the Western Conference was Candace Parker of the Los Angeles Sparks, propelling her team to a 3-0 week as well, with wins over San Antonio, Phoenix, and of course Minnesota yesterday. And really, Ari, I think I kind of think about CP this season, and somewhat of even last year. I think somewhat of Parker kind of in ways I think, or in games, somewhat taking a back seat and letting other players like Chelsea Gray or Nneka Ogwumike or even a Jantel Lavender, someone have their say or have their stamp on the game. And this week, I think, CP absolutely, lit it up either between yesterday, played great on Tuesday, also had a good game or great game in Phoenix, too, on Thursday night down in the desert. Ari, thoughts about Candace Parker winning this award? And I think for the second time in roughly 2 or 3 weeks, she's won this Player of the Week award.
Could not be more deserved. Just flat out. I will say this. A few weeks back, a lot of people started she had a slow start to the season, and I agree with you. A lot of times it's because she's saying, I don't need to be the star of the show. There's younger players. There's other players that were better for this game. And I think that's a true sign of an MVP candidate and a player who deserves these awards. The interesting aspect is I was giving a lot of crap to people who were saying that she was in the MVP debate. Because, I mean, let's say a month ago, I don't think she's in the debate. This past month, she is the MVP. And so I think it's really interesting because now she's coming in the second leg. And I think she did it last year. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm pretty sure she did it last year, where it was kind of towards the end of the season where the team kind of picked up pace, started pushing towards the playoffs, that she said, okay, hop on my back and I will lead us. You got to respect that. I mean, she went on straight beast mode this past week.
Yeah, 3 great games, of course, leading her team to 3 wins over the Stars, the Merc, and, of course, also with the victory over the Lynx yesterday. So, again, Candace Parker and Tina Charles, golf claps for both them winning the Players of the Week awards for ending on Sunday, August 27th, 2017. All right, 3 games from Sunday. Want to get into all 3 games. First, the Sky and Liberty, New York wallops Chicago, 92-62 from the Garden yesterday. Stephanie Dolson, 22 points, lead the way for Chicago. Kalia Copper, 17 points. TC, 22. And then Bria Hartley and Epiphany Prince chipped in 11 each to help New York with the victory yesterday afternoon from MSG. So again, Ari, we talked about the New York again, 8 straight wins, and again, picking up steam towards the postseason picture for them. And of course, the Sky still hanging on, I think, by dental floss or by the skin of their teeth right now for that number 8 spot right now. Ari, overall thoughts on the game before we do dive into the rest to both teams, but give us your overall final takeaway from New York's victory over Chicago.
New York looked really good. Obviously, they sputtered at some times. Honestly, I'm more focused on Chicago in this game because I'm just confused by them. Because, some games you get them, they're dominating the paint like we all expected. Obviously, the trade, whatever, got some headlines. But either way, this team, at certain times, I'm like, oh, Amber, you know what you're doing. And then other times, I'm like, what are you tank? Like, the tank conversation comes back in, which is ridiculous considering right after the trade, everyone thought she was crazy. And then the team had that amazing uptake. I'm just like, Chicago, one of my main focuses for the rest of the season, because I'm so intrigued of, can they pull anything out? Do they have anything left in the tank, or was that basically the last fumes before they're just on E? I don't know.
they're somewhat becoming a tough book to read a little bit. Again, at least on paper, they have like a very small fighting chance of climbing into the 8, depending on what happens with the 2 teams in front of them, at least the 1 team in front of them with Seattle right now. But I agree, though. I mean, obviously, a lot of people had question marks, and I know that we broke down the trade pretty thoroughly here last month here on the network in about a 15-minute block about, Atlanta wins this trade by far, but both teams kind of went in opposite directions after that trade was made. And then with New York, again, Ari, as we said about Tina Charles once more, but again,
but look at the stats. I mean, other players coming in too. Bria Hartley, Kia, Prince. Other players are coming in, and that's the thing that we need to see. I think Bria Hartley has done an amazing job of I don't know if she's been rallying the team, but she's definitely been that voice on the court through her actions that says, hey, Tina can't carry the load by herself. She can, but that's not going to bring us big wins, and it's not going to bring us deep into the playoffs. And I think that's been a huge offseason acquisition for them.
Yeah, I mean, that might be one that's probably looked at once the season's over as maybe an under the radar or underrated move, perhaps, about Bria going to New York. And really, I mean, obviously, seeing her bounce back from her pregnancy again, we've seen a lot of players do that recently, and they've come back bigger and stronger. And she's done a phenomenal job lately.
Quickly too.
It's such a sport in a very short amount of time. I mean, at least with when I talked to Candace Parker when I was in college 3 years ago, it took her about 8 or 10 games. Missed the first 8 games and came back and was great again right after coming back from the pregnancy, from her pregnancy. And Bria has really done wonders lately. Real quick, we'll go to the chat box real quick from Todd. In regards to the MVP, about Candace Parker being MVP, perhaps, he said, Ari, that you just read his mind. He said, would be 4th behind fouls. Jonquil Jones and Charles would be about right. And then his one scenario real quick is he sees Seattle possibly losing at Washington, with the Mystics having to have some pride to close out a disappointing season with all the acquisitions. Chicago beats Dallas and Seattle loses at Minnesota, make the playoffs at the 8th spot. And real quick as well, he says about Bria Hartley, Hartley needed time. Now she has become a good point guard who does not turn it over and has played excellent defense. Sorry, how about that? Would you agree about Hartley?
100%. 100%. Her defense, I think, has been the key. She's been nonstop, and Beard on LA showed that too. It's not necessarily about when they have the ball. It's about the off-ball play, and I think we see a lot of players in their earlier years not necessarily focus on that aspect of the game. And once they kind of get in, and having Bill Laimbeer as your coach is definitely going to help that. They're definitely playing Bill Laimbeer defense these days. So I cannot agree more with that.
All right, Todd had one quick question. I did not get a chance to get to it, but here it is right now. He's asking, how high, due to her great play the last few weeks, do you see Parker finishing in the MVP race?
So here's my one issue with the WNBA, well, most league MVP races. It becomes so much of a publicity game. Now, we saw it in the All-Star game. In my opinion, Candace Parker should not have been a starter. Maya Moore should not have been a starter. I'm a diehard fan of both of them. But let's be realistic. Statistically, they should not have been starters. I think Candace is going to end up finishing a lot higher than she necessarily should based on 2 things. One, people focusing on her namesake in the past couple of weeks, the past month, right as voting starts, you're like, oh, I've been hearing her name a lot. I'm going to vote for her. I think the sleeper, though, real talk, the sleeper for MVP who should be in the discussion, and I rarely hear, is Skylar Diggins. Her season, amazing. Now, obviously, her team's not getting the spotlight, but get them a couple, upsets in the playoffs. As everybody's saying, they're the team you don't want to play in the playoffs. They play a physical ball. And I would not be surprised if Skylar sneaks up into the top 5 for the MVP race.
That would be pretty intriguing to kind of see her bounce back from, a disappointing season, coming off the ACL injury, and, of course, the team going from Tulsa to Dallas. But, again, the Liberty over the Sky, 92-62. Next game, Game 3 of the match between the Sparks and Lynx. LA at home beats Minnesota before a crowd of over 19,000 people.
That was amazing to see.
Our women game yesterday. LA 78, Minnesota 67. Sylvia Fowles 17 points. Maya Moore off night for Maya 10 points. Candace Parker 24 points, game high, team high, and Chelsea Gray chips in 16. Ari, outside of the game, I mean, obviously the score, the matchup, the hype, the publicity, the tension in the air. How about that crowd, though, man? Over 19,000 people at Staples Center for the game last
night. Not camp day. And not a camp day.
Not a camp day.
That's all I got to say. That's what I'm talking about. Get the publicity out there. You use the camp days to build the base. Get the kids to tell their parents about it. And their parents are like, oh, I got a night off. I enjoy basketball. There's a great game going on. I'm going to go see it. Great. Amazing. I mean, so going back to when I first became a Lynx fan and KG was gone, I was going to these Lynx games. when the Timberwolves sucked, there was more people on average going to the Lynx games than the Timberwolves games. And I'm talking about when the Timberwolves were playing LeBron and all the big stars in Miami. And we still had more people at the Lynx games. People will come to the game if you give them the opportunity.
If you build it, they will come.
Exactly.
Exactly. But all right, I guess to the game again. So obviously this is vice versa, or in Hollywood terms, a script flip from last year where Minnesota won the season series. Now LA has won the season series. Now, obviously, the regular season, of course, means absolutely nothing when the playoffs do start because all the records go back to 0-0 for this. But, I mean, at least in my sake, and, looking at this through both sides of the, from both sides of the aisle, okay, Minnesota won the regular season series last year and did not win the championship last year. But at the same time, though, Minnesota, I did say, though, that they were on a San Francisco Giants-esque type of winning championships. Let's see, 2011, 2013, 2015. Oh, gee whiz, it's 2017, so they're probably bound for number 4. But, of course, we got a long way to go. But, Ari, overall thoughts, though, about this game again. But, of course, as we said, no camp day needed, 19,000 people pack Staples Center in downtown L.A. on a Sunday afternoon for a game. Which, honestly, should have been the headline. Excuse me.
I think that there's a few huge keys in this game that are overlooked. One, Nneka's 4 fouls really early, and the team was able to pull it out even with her in early foul trouble. Now, that's something that the Lynx typically are amazing at doing, is attacking the player who's in foul trouble, using that to their advantage, and basically just the whole offense attacking that one player. They didn't do that well. I saw a lot of great looks on defense from LA. I'm not sold on LA. I'll be 100% honest. I said this a lot earlier. I think the finals is going to be Lynx in Connecticut. I don't think it's that crazy of a take with the way they've been playing. They are youthful. But I also think either any combo of the 3 teams will be in the finals. I tweeted this out in the beginning of the game when it was going back and forth a little bit, then LA ran away with it. I thought the loser of that game is going to win the finals. It's something about that end of the season, playing the number 1 versus number 2. Number 1 loses or the number 2 loses, you have that chip on your shoulder. And it's the perfect time right before the playoffs to give you that little bit of that extra oomph to push you in. And you're going to see them in the playoffs, most likely at some point. And that smack talk's already there. I don't buy into this whole rivalry thing. I think Phoenix and Minnesota is more of a rivalry. Just based off, if you're going off playoff games and series, it's like, yeah, that's the rivalry. And Lynx fans will say, well, Phoenix doesn't win, so it's not a rivalry. But I disagree. The competitiveness and the ferociousness of the players, that's what I call a rivalry. Yeah, I mean, I don't buy into any of the social media nonsense either. I mean, just because I don't, and I don't engage in it, nor do I either engage, nor do I or any of that stuff either. But I mean, no, I mean, if you were to look at it, I mean, the rivalry or rivalries for that matter have to have, not, one series or a couple of games. It has to have, a lengthy amount of time, which is why LA Phoenix is the best rivalry in my mind, because that's been going on for 21, soon to be 22 seasons next year. If you look at all the history in there, I mean, Phoenix, Minnesota, at least a rivalry from roughly, I'd say 2013 till still even now. I mean, yeah. It's bad if there's shirts at the TSRA pro shop that say my favorite team is Phoenix and whoever plays Minnesota. So that's already that's a big story. What I'm talking about. That's a big story right there. But I guess so. All right, you know what, man? I actually agree with you, not about the matchup, but about how the season series did finish, again with LA winning 2-1, and I somewhat bought into that. And when I saw the final score, thinking, yeah, that's good and all, but if you look back, and as I said again, if you look back at last season, again, the Lynx won the regular season series last season, and then this year the Sparks win. And again, this could be roles reversed, and either way. But I mean, as of now, and of course, everyone wants the collision course for LA and Minnesota, but of course, there's wild cards thrown in there, and anything can happen in the postseason. Real quick to the chat box from Tani was asking Crystal about the crowd. Crystal said did go yesterday. It was filled. I think they meant sold out, as in if you didn't buy tickets in advance, you weren't getting any at all. But it was pretty packed. And again, Ari, I think that's the other thing lost in the shuffle here was, the Sparks have started doing these We Are Women games, trying to, set, continue to break barriers and break records, which was their slogan 3 years ago. When we first started the network and when they were trying to get 22,000 people at the game against San Antonio that season.
Ari, outside of camp days, are these type of games, either like the Sparks did or the Mercury, of course, when they honor, a very prominent female figurehead, either Gabrielle Giffords this year or Holly Rowe, are more of these games probably necessary to, I guess, help grow attendance outside of those camp day dates that teams do schedule in the summer?
I've thought about this a lot. I think yes, but I also think the biggest thing the league can do to get more people in the seats is apparel. They need more apparel. And I understand there's a lot of things a lot of hoops you got to jump through, a lot of things you got to do to get that. But at the end of the day, and I tweeted this out every time I travel, I wear some sort of WNBA gear because that's just free publicity for the league. Now, it sucks when I'm wearing like a Minnesota jersey because it just says Mayo Clinic. And I can't tell you how many times people come up to me and go, "You play for the Mayo Clinic?" And they think I'm horribly sick or something. And like the Mayo Clinic gave me a jersey to make me feel better, like a Make-A-Wish or something. And I'm like, no, look at the tiny little link on the top of my shoulder. So I have a Chicago jersey. That's great because it says Chicago. So people know it's a sports team, but it's not even the one that says Sky on it. And there's things like that. We need more apparel. All right. We were able to get two associates of ours out to the All-Star game. I know there's a lot of issues with getting to the All-Star game. In my mind, I'd never been to a WNBA All-Star game. I never had the chance to send anybody. So Simone Augustus, my favorite player. I think she's the bee's knees. All I wanted, an All-Star jersey of hers. You can't even buy an All-Star jersey at the game. You could get T-shirts. Get me a jersey. Give me something that I can wear. Because the WNBA jerseys, in a lot of senses, are cooler than a lot of other sports jerseys. So, get them out there. It's free publicity, and people are willing to wear it. If you build it, they will come. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I would love to have, a Natasha Howard jersey. Okay, this is my biggest thing. Every starter on every team, you should be able to buy their jersey, at least on the website. At least on the website. And the only team, as far as I know, that does that in a kind of roundabout, cutting corners way is the Indiana Fever. And the way they do it is they reduce the price and you make a customized jersey. They don't sell jerseys of any player specifically, but you can make a customized jersey and they have presets for every single player on the team. And if that's a great loophole and way around doing it, if you can't afford to constantly stock it with those, then do it that way. Find a way to get your fans to be able to rep who they love.
And very, and points I think a lot of people would agree on right there. Todd, about this, he says they need to market the season quicker, such as not waiting until the end of the year to start or to pull out the trading cards, which of course just went on sale, I think, roughly a couple of weeks ago from our David Siegel. Just brought that up recently on his Dishin' and Swishin' Twitter handle. And at least looking at my very dirty closet and studio here, Ari, I mean, I could see at least, I own more basketball jerseys than anything else, and baseball's been in my blood for 23 years. But I can see 2 Taurasi jerseys and 3 Parker jerseys, and only one of them says city name. The other 2 have Equitrust or Casino Arizona. And I can look at all my Steve Nash jerseys that have Suns or Phoenix or Lakers on it. So obviously I agree. And very good thoughts, though, about it, saying the Mayo Clinic, of course, Mayo Clinic Square being outside of Target Center and also outside of Target Field. Next door neighbors for the Twins and Lynx and T-Wolves. Ari, one more game from Sunday real quick. Merc and Storm, pretty big game. At least the Mercury had all their help for the playoffs taken care of early in the day. They did, though, squeak by the Storm 75-71. Leilani Mitchell and DT with back-to-back big threes to win the ball game and close them out late. Brittany Griner throws in 29 points. Jewel Lloyd, 33-point game, is spoiled by the Mercury victory, but now, more importantly, Sue Bird now just 3 dimes away from Ticha Penicheiro's record for all-time assist. Ari, give us your thoughts, takeaway from this game between the Merc and Storm. What do you got?
Really impressed by a lot of things going on there. Jewel Lloyd, who I've been a huge fan of from day one, what she's doing is remarkable. And honestly, I don't normally get so steamed and pissed off. But when people were talking about when the trade deadline was coming about trading her, and I saw a couple articles or a couple tweets that were like, "Oh, crazy idea that they trade her 3-team, oh, whatever." And I was just like, "Are you a moron?" You do not. You have a Hall of Famer, a top 10 player in Brianna Stewart, and in my opinion, a top 15 player in Jewel Lloyd, who eventually, I think Jewel Lloyd, honestly, will have a better overall career than Brianna Stewart in the sense of, and I think it's a bold prediction. I'll most likely be wrong about, but I believe it because Jewell Loyd is so versatile, and I see her picking things up from the players around her and the greatness that she sees. Everyone wants to talk about the Kobe stuff that she learns, but I see her learning from other WNBA players and picking stuff up and adding to her game and all these different elements. I was watching her highlight reel from last night or from the game. Some of those shots she's taking, that is like fifth-year confidence. That's not a third-year player playing basketball. That's someone who knows what her mission is, knows what her job is. And, you know, I rarely see Brianna Stewart taking the team on her shoulders like that. And I don't think there's games where she carries the scoring load, but the way that the pace is controlled by Jewell, I'm blown away by that. My bigger thing is I want your input on this. BG, thoughts? Because I don't know if you know my opinion on her. She has the ability, but anytime she's challenged by a top 3 player in the league or, you know, matchup, she doesn't really show up. And she gets frustrated. Obviously, everyone knows she gets in foul trouble. Whatever. I think she gets frustrated because she's so used to being so much more physically gifted and talented that when she's actually challenged, one of two things happens. She says, I want to fight it, or I give up.
You know, I totally agree with that, with that Ari 100%. And I think not just BG, but I think other players against certain teams. I think we've seen this a couple times with certain players against certain teams. But, I mean, is it a confidence issue? Is it, you know, something mentally? There's a lot of avenues there. And I'll even admit I was that way when I played baseball, too, when I would play, you know, face a pitcher that was throwing, you know, way faster than what I could hit. I mean, there's definitely intimidation. There's definitely, you know, mental games or mental blocks that you do get. And in spurts, I think, depending on I think I agree, though, in regards to depending on who she's matched up with, either if it's Syl, if it's a double team against LA, or anyone really in the league. And I think, though, that it also comes from, you know, maybe still looking back at the college days of her being able to pretty much own the lane, own the paint over all the smaller centers and all the guards and everything. And then when she does face someone, obviously not the same height, but still somewhere close by to her height, you know, sometimes I think that it gets to her up here sometimes every once in a while, I think. What do you think?
I'd agree. You know, early on in her career, I was kind of looking to Taurasi, DT, to kind of step in and basically be like, just be a killer. Like, because, and I can't lie, when I first became a WNBA fan, I hated Taurasi. Hated her. Because like I loved her as a player, but as someone who, you know, she's pulling the dagger out your back and then putting it back in every 5 seconds on you, you gotta hate her. It's like Brett Favre, you know? Like if you're a Vikings fan and Brett Favre, it's just like, wait, Taurasi's wide open with 5 seconds left and they're down by 2. Like it honestly was like a broken record every time we played them for a really long time. And I always kind of expected Taurasi to pull her aside and just be like, look who you are, look who I am. This is our team, and we're just going to own this league. Honestly, I've been disappointed. And, you know, especially these past couple games where, you know, DT was sitting for rest or what, and they didn't really talk about it. I mean, it was really confusing in the Lynx game when all of a sudden she just sat. And there's been, I think that's the second game against the Lynx this season where they just inexplicably pulled her halfway through the game and just sat her out. And I don't know if it was like somewhat of a playoff plan for when they face each other in the playoffs, or they legitimately do want to rest her. But in the same respect, you got to know DT's got that fire in her and she wants to be out there. And there were some plays where she did look exhausted or not in the game, kind of like BG when she gets a little bit frazzled, you know?
The fact about the dagger, though, and sadly we felt the wrath of it on our own teams, Nate Kading with the Chargers, and sadly, buddy, Blair Walsh against the Seahawks. I mean, so we felt it both from the opposing team and also from our own guys as well. But definitely would agree 100%. Couple of comments.
That's what it's about, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. It is. Real quick, couple of comments real quick from Todd Mintz. Todd, about the Storm, he says if they fail to make the postseason, he says if they fail to make the playoffs, they are a talented team with superstar players in Lloyd and Stewart. My feeling is they need to start grooming a point by draft to be groomed to replace Sue. Second thing is during free agency or draft is they need some size. They are a pretty small team. Need a big to basically start up front and have Alicia Clark come off the bench. In his mind, Also, real quick about the Mercury from his side of the story, he says it seems when the stakes are higher, the Mercury will be more dangerous. DT steps up in elimination games. Would not be surprised if the Mercury make it to the semifinals, perhaps, which like she did last year. And I said, I think a couple of days ago, she has like an amazing record in elimination games. And really, you know, and I think this is also, I think, Ari, as I said a couple of days ago on the show, this is what separates, you know, the elite players from the average players and players still trying to find their rhythm is how are you when the pressure's on, when the, you know, when the lights are on hotter and the blood is boiling, you know, in the waning seconds of a game. And we saw last night, you know, play the psycho theme. You know, she's coming in. No. There's the dagger. There you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really interesting. And, you know, to his point, I agree about Alicia Clark. You know, Seattle has been so confusing, and I think everybody touched upon this before she got fired. But why on God's earth do you bring in Langhorne or other players? Carolyn Swords, and then not use her for why you brought her in? You know, like there was just so many mind-boggling things, and the new coach comes in, and all of a sudden the team takes a new shift, and obviously that happens a lot when you bring in a new coach, just because, you know, you shake things up and they feel like they have to fight again. We've seen that in every sport ever. But I don't think if you're playing on this team or you're on the front office in this team, there's no way in your mind that you can say that there's been anything good about this season if they don't make the playoffs. They should have been a top 4 team, in my opinion.
Now, I think a lot of us agree with that. I certainly do as well. But again, folks, revisit the scores from Sunday. Liberty 92, Sky 62, Spark 78, Lynx 67, Mercury 75, Storm 71. All those are finals from yesterday in the WNBA. Ari, looking briefly over the current WNBA playoff picture, if the playoffs started right here and now on Monday night, August 28th, 2017 at about 8:35 Pacific time. In the elimination round, it'll be Seattle and Washington, and Dallas playing Phoenix, with it being reseeded following each matchup between. And then after that, it would go to either New York or Connecticut. And, of course, after that, reseeded once more to play L.A. and Minnesota. Ari, 6 spots are taken, 2 are left. Right now, the 7th spot occupied by Dallas and the 8th spot by Seattle. 2 teams have a very, very microscopic chance of getting in. That would be Chicago and Atlanta. Ari, what do you expect from all 4 of those teams as we move down the final week of the season?
I don't think there's a way Dallas doesn't make the playoffs because, I mean, I don't think Skyler will let her team slip like that. You know, she correct me if I'm wrong, but she's never been to the playoffs. And when you get this close and you're playing this great of a season, I think you kind of – this is where you cement yourself as that, as you were saying, that top-tier player, or, you know, good versus great. And this is where Skyler is going to say, hey, I am on that level. I think the really interesting thing is going to be Seattle and Chicago, because Atlanta I've forgotten about. But, you know, Seattle, can they keep it up? Chicago, like the 1 and 2 between them, the Chicago and Seattle, is just so interesting. If you know which team's going to show up, because they're like Jekyll and Hyde. You never know which team's going to show up, and so if they make it to the playoffs, they can make a good push. But, like, I don't see Chicago having a chance in the playoffs to go anywhere, really. They had a great game against the Lynx where they just blew them out of the water. They've had a couple great games early in the season where they put up a strong fight against top-tier teams. But they can't even put up good fights against middle teams. So at some point, you gotta say, all right, get out of here and let Seattle see what they can do. Maybe Seattle can do what Phoenix did last year and, you know, push through the single elimination rounds to get into, like, an actual series.
Possibly. Todd, real quick, he says, in regards to, you brought up Carolyn Swords, he said, I've been saying that all year. Look how well she did last couple of games that she learned to not get in foul trouble. Todd says, real quick, Chicago edges out Seattle with a win on Sunday at Allstate as well with those 2. But again, as of now, Dallas and Seattle have the last 2 spots occupied. Chicago and ATL are somewhat close, but we need a couple of things to fall in place for them to get into the postseason party. Ari, some news real quick. The Lynx did do a late season acquisition, signing a foreign player today. What can you tell us about what the Lynx are bringing in or bringing to the table for the playoff push down the remainder of the regular season, of course, into the WNBA semifinals?
And maybe a little bit further, you never know. No, it's actually really interesting. So I saw a lot of tweets, a lot of reports. People thought she was going to join the team. I think it was last week. And then I'm blanking on what game it was, but she was actually spotted at a home game in Minnesota. Lynx won. It was the game before. Oh, it was Friday night against the San Antonio Stars, I believe. And she was sorry, because that was not a home game. It's the game before that. Whatever. She was spotted in the field, and I was like, oh, they're definitely signing her now, or is this going to be a Dallas situation with the Australian girl? I guess not. She is a firecracker. She's 21 years old. She's fast. She's speedy. And what we've seen from Cheryl, Minnesota Lynx head coach, Cheryl Reeve, is she likes to bring in speed and energy later in the season. They did it with Anna Cruz before. They've done it many times. They did. I mean, when they brought in Sylvia and Renee Montgomery, when Renee first came over back to the team in that trade, the speed. It's for Cheryl. I think it's going to very much so be bring your speed and know what your position is and do your role. Make some points. Drop a few dimes. But more importantly, you're a bench player. When you're coming into the game, full energy all the time. And I think that's what she asks for every bench player. And that's why I think the Lynx have done so good, because they have very specifically defined roles for each player. And I see Brian Agler is starting to do that for the team in LA, where he's finally starting to use the bench more. And that's been a huge thing. And that's why I think they've really started to pick up over the end of the season,
I totally agree. And I think as well that as we look as well with the injury bug somewhat that, I think that Crystal has been the main vocal point, okay, Cheryl, time to start playing the rooks, start playing those young kids. I know because we sadly don't know how much longer that Moan and Waylon have left in the tank, or how many more games, or for that matter, if they have any, I'm sure they have at least 1, 2, maybe 3 more years left perhaps. But obviously seeing the late season acquisition, I think by any means necessary, it'll help out with the Lynx going forward. Ari, nice, a question and also a good comment from Todd. He says, thanks for coming on. He says, you're exceptional. Do not get impressed very easy. Does have one question in regards to head coaches based on how season ends. What coaches do you see perhaps being looking for a new job after the season does end, and why?
So interesting. I don't see any coaches really shifting right now because of the situation that everybody's individually in. I think if there was somebody who's on the hot seat, it's going to be Coop over in Atlanta. But I think that would be a foolish mistake, as far as they have a youthful team. We've seen Sykes say that she's a big fan of him unprompted, which I think is a great sign for him. The team loves him. So I think if there is someone who's on the hot seat, it's going to be him, just because of that tank after the trade. But I don't think it makes sense. Obviously, we're going to have a new coach in Seattle, because it's a toss-up. We don't know what's going on there. Then you got Sparks, Lynx, Liberty are locked in at Bill Lambier. There was some talk about Bill Lambier possibly being on the hot seat, but I don't really think so. Then you got 2 new coaches in Texas and then in Chicago, and I don't really think either of them. I think, if anything, Amber would be. But when you give someone the GM and the head coaching job, you're not going to. So I don't really see any coaching changes going in the offseason. I think the more interesting thing is going to be this. We're trending upwards, and as leagues grow often, and we've seen this through every league, if you look back in it, in the first 20, or I don't want to say 20, but like in the first growing years, there's a lot less trades and a lot less, of the shifting around. It's much more natural shifting. A contract ends, the team doesn't want them, and they sign somewhere else, and they blossom there. I think in the next 5 years, the interesting trend up is going to be in big trades in the league.
Yeah, very good point. Good question, though, from Todd in regards to any possible thoughts of coaches being gone. Folks, one schedule note for you. There is one game tomorrow, and this is a very, very important note, but this is a reschedule or a makeup of the Suns Mystics game that was postponed because of rain coming into the Capital One Arena through a leaky roof that, of course, Ted Leonotis, the owner of Monumental Sports and the owner of both the arena, the Capitals, the Wizards, and the Mystics, said that they would take care of it. It's a 4:30 Pacific time starting, and it's a remake or rescheduled game that will take place tomorrow from our nation's capital. Ari, again, so you've got Connecticut locked in for your finals matchup right now, and Washington has somewhat scuffled lately. Of course, Del Don's absence, coming back after Reggie Miller-esque type going on with the choke sign. Ari, give us your thoughts about this game between the Sun, who have been a very amazing team this year, very incredible run and a great turnaround, against a very, very scuffling Washington, probably, I think, as well, very disappointing Mystics team so far this season.
Oh, definitely. In fact, You know, I had a chat with Amani Boyette while she was playing overseas in Israel this past offseason, and just happened to run into her. We were chatting, spent the day together, and I asked her, I was like, all right, what are your thoughts on Washington? And she put it so perfectly. Prove it before you say anything. You got Elena Deladon, 2015 MVP. You got Miesemann, who's straight up baller. Okay, then you bring over Tolliver, and I'm a huge, huge fan of Ivory Latta. I picked her to be 6th Woman of the Year. It doesn't look like it's going that way this year, but still huge, huge fan of her. This game, honestly, is one of my highlights for the rest of the season because I look at this and I say, okay, you have Connecticut, who's a young team trying to prove that they can make this push in the playoffs. Well, what's better to prove it than you're facing a top 5, you know, a top tier team that has MVP talent and is going to challenge you on many fronts. Connecticut needs to prove this. Washington, on the other hand, they've sputtered. EDD hasn't played a full season. She's been in, she's been out. They started to move it, then she gets hurt again, or then like all this stuff happens. So I wouldn't be surprised if Washington makes a crazy push in the playoffs. So that's why I think this game, honestly, is to me more intriguing than the Lynx Sparks final game of the series, because this game is the game that really says, okay, we know these other teams 1 and 2, fine. The rest of the playoffs is going to be the stuff that is jockeying for position. It's going to be much more intense. And then those are the teams that are really going to push forward. And again, I don't think it's going to be a rematch of the Sparks and the Lynx. So interested to see what happens. I also am, I've been saying this for a while. I want your take on this. I don't think the Mystics run a offense that's conducive for their power and their weapons.
You know, is it perhaps? I mean, you know, Mike Tebow's one of the good, if not, one of the best coaches. I think. Big Tebow fan. I mean, just what he's meant for the league and for the game itself. But I think though, more so, I think I think you're on the right channel more so because, you know, we have not seen EDD play a full 34 game schedule. I think in her entire career. I want to say maybe minus a rookie season. I mean, I know that she did it. That she had Lyme disease a couple times, had the back problem in 2014 during the finals. First hurt the thumb last year in the playoffs last year, and then again this year, and other things, someone interfering with her. But I think more so, I agree though in regards that I think for me it's more about will we ever see Deladon play a full 34 game schedule? I mean, and I would agree about Ivory Latta being 6th Woman of the Year, and Miesemann is just out there balling. But, I mean, more so I think, and I think Todd just hit the nail on the head here in the chat box, he says that the Washington role players are very inconsistent. That in lies a real issue, I think, is, and it's something that I've talked about and harped on with New York and also with Washington is, okay, you've got Charles, you've got all these star players, but where are the reinforcements? Where are the other, troops in the battalion trying to help you out and win a ball game outside of, of your main leaders in Deladon and Charles? So I think more so, I would agree though that I think role players is probably the biggest talking point for the Mystics going forward for their push for the postseason.
Definitely.
So again, folks, a 1 game schedule again, and this is once again a rescheduled makeup game for the Sun and Mystics. Again, the most recent meeting, of course, was rained out due to a leaky roof at Capital One Arena in Washington D.C. And of course, Ted Leonotis, the owner of Monumental Sports, even of course made a statement, said it's our fault for not being, we're responsible, but we'll get that taken care of for the game to be back in time. Ari, some off the court news real quick now. Obviously, the LA Sparks, obviously coming off the championship season last year, somewhat did a little bit of a music video, I guess, over the week, which more so I think was aimed at all of the stuff that these players go through on social media. But of course, Ari, as we know very well, there's some news publications that will twist those headlines a little bit, bring up the washcloth a little bit, and so. Caused the firestorm between Brian Agler and Cheryl Reeve, and some of them, the Sparks had to go as far as taking down the videos from their Instagram story. I mean, Ari, I mean, it was great for the first day seeing, this 3-part special. Obviously, it was done to a Beyonce song in black and white, and of course, they had Carrie Champion of ESPN, and also everyone's favorite Holly Rowe in this video shoot, and again on the bottom of the screen, you're seeing all these tweets that, of course, that have either been sent to us in this hangout or been sent to these players or coaches of this league. And, and for that matter, the fans of this, and this is on every ESPN story and Fox Sports story and Bleacher Report story. Ari, I guess first let's talk about the video itself. Again, it's done to the Beyonce song "Sorry." Again, Carrie Champion and Holly Rowe are missing the entire Sparks roster, but again, more so, again, it's combating or trying to, I guess, weed out or expose all the stuff and, shed light for the general public about what these athletes truly go through on a daily basis, not just during the season, but even after the season is over with. So your thoughts first on the video itself and its message, what it's trying to convey, not what was said in the press.
Mm-hmm. I love the message. I often have to fight myself from getting into stupid debates with stupid people about stupid topics, because we all know that if you're arguing about this, no offense, you're stupid. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense to me why this is even a topic of conversation. They made a great video. If I'm going to have beef with the video, in all honesty, it's the fact that, reporters or people who weren't part of the actual team were involved in it, only because I think there should be, especially for someone like Holly Rowe, and obviously I have the utmost respect for her, for what she does. Like, I kiss the ground she walks and wish I could be a millionth of what she is. But, there has to be somewhat of, everybody knows. It's like in the NFL, Joe Buck. Every team hates Joe Buck because every team thinks Joe Buck favors the other team or whatever. All the fans hate Joe Buck. And I think, when you start doing things like this, you kind of not play into that, but almost will start leading into that. Like, oh, why is Holly Rowe hanging out with the Lynx so much? Why is Holly Rowe hanging out with the Mercury, the Spot, stuff like that. To me, the message was clear. It's like a picture that says stop. The message is clear, and we need to accept that and understand it. And the things that these women go through, it's absurd. It is, like, there's no other way to put it. It is just ridiculous. And if you would think about a male athlete or even female athletes in other mainstream sports going through that, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And, former players writing articles, objectifying 98% of the league doesn't help either, but let's not get into that.
I know that one a little bit too well.
Yeah.
But and then Ari, I guess, and now to go to the other side of the spectrum again. Now I forget exactly who it was. I think it was ESPNW or somebody, but someone took that article or took the video and wringed out the washcloth, and of course said it's not about weeding out all the trolls. It's the Sparks are going to repeat this year. That wasn't even the case, and of course you had Cheryl Reeve and Brian Agler, both coaches again. Yeah. Very utmost respect for both Brian and Cheryl. Love them to death. They both were saying, no, that's not what we're trying to convey here. And even Cheryl, of course, being on the other side of the spectrum, being in Minnesota, seeing LA win that ring that they had on their finger in the video on their home floor. Cheryl's like, that's not what the message is here. Did you not see, what was on the bottom of the screen? So I guess, sorry, to the dark side of the force, I guess, overall thoughts about, again, in another instance again, of once again headlines being somewhat turned on their head.
It's horrible. I love seeing other coaches come to defend other coaches, because that's what we need to see. Often, though, I will say on the flip side of that, I want to see the coaches smack talking too. I want to see practice. I want. And no, and the thing is, the thing is, the video that they made, I think, plays into what I'm saying, because WNBA players do not have the ability to be vocal. And I don't know if you heard the podcast by Lynx Dynasty where they interviewed, and so, when I forget who it was, Lisa or Lindsay Gross or something like that, I forget her name, I'm butchering it, I'm sure, but she went in, she said, look, mainstream reporters don't know how to say Diana Taurasi's a villain without objectifying her and making it about her being a female. They don't know how to say this person is a jerk and talks a whole hell of a lot of smack. So, and that's what it needs to be. These players, not only, this is what people don't realize, in WNBA, not only are they world-class athletes, not only are they self-promoting because the league doesn't have enough promotion and doing things on their own, i.e. Amani Boyette getting 50 Cent and other people to come to the game, i.e., Sydney Weiss trying to get Justin Bieber to come to a game, but they also have to hold back who they are. They can't be themselves. And if they are themselves, then they get objectified and villainized even more. And I'm not talking about the good type of villainizing where you say, I hate you because you beat my team in basketball. It's I hate you because of who you are, and you don't even know who they are. Gets me worked up.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. Ari, we talked with Owen Perkins of WNBA Stats and Facts about this a few months ago in regards to we're going to kind of go a little bit past the hour-long threshold because I think a lot of people want to hear a little bit more insight, I think, from both of us, more so from you, because just, you know, it's been good so far here this evening. But Ari, if you can, obviously the Lynx, as you mentioned, of course, playing in Minnesota, and Minnesota being one of the very few, at least Minneapolis, St. Paul being one of the few areas in the country that has a team, and I believe in every major league sport, from the Twins, the Vikings, the Wolves and Lynx, the Wild, and of course the Loons and MLS. Ari, I guess first and foremost, obviously, you know, you go in the Wolves games, probably you go into Twins games maybe, or what have you. I guess, how, I guess, would you probably compare your experience probably outside of the Wolves, maybe going, you know, take the Twins, because they're playing right there at Target Field, I guess. What things, I guess, in your time have you do you see differently in regards to either outside of attempts, but maybe either stuff we touch base on, either merchandise or stuff like that, or even media exposure, I guess. But I guess what things do you or have you seen in Minneapolis, St. Paul with all the teams I listed? Somewhat, I guess, would you wish the Lynx could, I guess, bring to the table?
So it's an interesting question. Right after the All-Star break, there's a lot in the whole Twitter sphere, as I'll say, about, you know, Minnesota Lynx. They had 4 players out of their starting 5 in the All-Star game. There was not one reporter from the Twin Cities at the game. And I tweeted out at that time to Mark Rosen, who's a legend of Minnesota sports reporting. And I said, like, this is kind of ridiculous. I'm a lifelong Minnesota sports fan, and you would never do this for another Minnesota sports team. And he basically kind of brushed me to the side as a young reporter who doesn't have the notoriety, and I totally regret that and respect him. Next morning, Cheryl Reeve literally tweets out the same thing I said. And it was funny because Mark Rosen had defended himself by saying Cheryl agrees with him. And so I'm like, well, wait a second. So I tweeted out, and it caused this whole argument. And Cheryl basically said, like, no, I'm sorry. Like, I don't believe you. If the Vikings had 2 players in the Pro Bowl, you'd send them. If the Twins had 4 players in the All-Star game, you'd send 1 person. And I understand budgets are low and media doesn't have the same budget it used to, but let's get it together. For instance, I was actually in Minnesota this past weekend, flying into MSP International Airport. They have a Minnesota homegrown, or a Minnesota like sports store. They had fully stocked Packers gear and not one Lynx thing. They were well stocked in Loons gear and not one Lynx thing. So I went up to the manager and I made a formal complaint. And she said, oh, we're waiting on jerseys or T-shirts and hats to come. They'll be here soon. Now, to me, that's like okay, great, exactly, the eye roll. Like, yeah, thank you, but A, it should already be here, and B, why is that all you're getting is a T-shirt and a hat? Get me a jersey, get me, you know, socks, get me like some random swag I can wear. And the thing is, I went to Target in Minneapolis. Same thing. I could get Gophers gear. I could get local high school sports gear. Okay, I could get Vikings gear. Lynx gear you can't get unless you go to the stadium or you're going to like a specific retailer that somehow is affiliated with the team. And again, I'm saying this well knowing that in comparison to many other WNBA teams, they are tenfold ahead of them in the coverage, the respect, and the gear. So when I'm saying this about how shocked I am about it, or for instance, 2 weeks ago, I was in Dallas and I tweeted out, hey, can anybody tell me where I can get a Dallas Wings jersey? No one can tell me besides driving out to Arlington and getting, or wherever the stadium is on the campus, and getting a jersey. And to me, if I'm in another state that has a WNBA team, I have no problem shelling out, you know, however many hours of my labor to buy a jersey of that team. Because at the end of the day, I'm supporting a good cause. And then it gives me something new to wear and something new to brag about. And like, check out this shirt. We need that. Like, it's plain and simple. We need that. In comparison to other teams, the Lynx get maybe 1/10 of the coverage. You know, listening to local Minnesota sports radio, now it's also possible because they're signed to one radio station, so another one can't or whatever. You don't, Howard talks about it a lot in his articles and his podcasts or whatever. When he drives into New York, he doesn't hear them say, oh, there's a Liberty game going on tonight. I was listening to the K-Fan, the Minnesota Sports Radio. There was no talk of the Lynx Sparks game that night. It was just the Vikings preseason game. And honestly, who cares about a preseason game? Diana Taurasi said it perfectly. What the hell is the basketball tournament? I don't know what that is, but if you put it on ESPN, I'm going to watch it. Like, it all feeds into each other, okay? Put the games on ESPN1, get us gear, and you'll have 19,000 people at games. It's possible. Drives me crazy.
And I think, Ari, too, as you look at your hometown or look at the area you're from, obviously Minneapolis, St. Paul, okay, but Twins have not won since '87, I think, with Kirby Puckett and those guys in the walk-off base. I want to say '87.
I think they did one. Was it 90 they won? Because I know they
91.
won.
So 91 at the
But
Metro.
other than that,
the Vikings have gotten there but lost. The Wild. I'm a hockey fan, so I know all about Minnesota's history. And the Loons are just starting out and opening up a new stadium sometime soon. And the fact that of all the stuff that you just mentioned in regards to really nothing for the Lynx is absolutely mind-boggling. I guess maybe the only other thing I can think of is going to the Spark Stars game last Tuesday at Staples Center, was going into the team shop, and literally just the front entrance just has all these jerseys lined up. You go in from the corner, oh, look, there's Kings gear, there's Lakers gear and Clippers gear, but yet all we get is the front door entrance, and then that's practically it, and then all the other stuff in the art corner. But I guess to kind of echo real quick, and this is something that Owen and I talked about, and again, I more so said, at least lobbying during the attendance debate, Ari, was, I've lived in San Diego my whole life. I've lost a football team to LA, 2 basketball teams left before I was born, and we got MLB baseball, minor league hockey, and professional indoor soccer. But it's all we got, and possibly MLS in 3 years maybe. But I call this San Diego syndrome, because when the Padres lose games, I go to the beach, I go and find the best craft beer I can find, or I'll go and do something around my hometown. But Ari, though, I think it does not get factored enough, though, and I said this a while back, though, too, is I guess, to be in your mind, how much does it both help and hurt either the Sparks, the Mercury, or the Lynx, that they obviously play over the summer, when everyone's out of school, but they're sharing time with either the Dodgers or the Twins or the Diamondbacks? How much really does it not get factored in a lot of people's minds that, that not only are they battling their own problems off the floor with, stuff on social media, but there's other teams in their markets that are also playing games during the time that their season is in full bloom? Honestly,
I'd brush that to the side, because think about it. There's never a time that sports isn't going on in major markets. So what are you saying? If you want a successful professional female sports league or professional sports league, that maybe you can argue is more of a niche market, that they have to play at a specific time, and you can't be here and you can't be there. It's like the separate but equal is not equal. It's just, no, I'm sorry. Like, if I'm a basketball fan, I hate baseball. I'm not saying if you're a basketball fan, you hate baseball, but like, I personally hate baseball. So like, if I'm a basketball fan and I'm missing basketball and the NBA is not around, I'm not going to watch, a bunch of 12-year-olds play D-League basketball. I'm going to watch professional athletes play top-tier sports. I think the product's good, people are going to watch. But the problem is that people don't know that the product is even there.
And I think the other thing, though, and I recall during when they were showing the Lean In Together commercials, I had a buddy on Snapchat take a video of it, and he put it out on the story and it said, I just watched these NBA players live for the last 30 seconds about watching the WNBA. But at the same time, though, Ari, Kobe Bryant, Rick Fox, Devin Booker, Tyson Chandler, guys that I've seen go to games in Phoenix or in Los Angeles. And obviously, with the Lynx still having the direct tie to the Wolves, I think is phenomenal with them. Of course, that helps big time when they do reopen up Target Center for the Wolves season. But Ari, I guess Russell Westbrook was at the Sparks game yesterday against the Lynx. But I guess even though that the NBA that some of the teams are not still directly tied to the NBA franchises, but I guess still, even with all that in mind, Ari, how much, though, does the NBA relationship, though, still to this day, I guess, still help the WNBA in your mind, either with Wolves players going to the Lynx games, or even in our case out here on the West Coast with either Mercury players going or Sun players going to Mercury games, or even LA players going to Sparks games?
I think it's great. I think that sometimes it's too much. You know, I don't concern respect. You know, I think it's great they're bringing people who wouldn't necessarily watch the game or even know that the game existed to even know about it. That's amazing. But the other hand is like, come on, like what we need a guy to stand there and say, hey, you should watch this game for people to watch the game. Like, look, if the studies show and, you know, people have actually put work into this and the league is okay with it, then who am I to say that this is bad? But I think like there is some extent to it. Like, first of all, if you're having only 3 commercials all season, all right, and 1 commercial is Watch Me Work, that you play just like consistently over and over, and then you have Watch Me Work 2, I don't think the third one should be a bunch of guys saying watch WNBA, because you're basically saying that, like, if we're gonna, you know what I mean, like 1/3 of our marketing should be NBA players, which, like, power to them, use that, have the connection, use everything you can from the NBA. But I'm very much hopeful that one day the WNBA will no longer be the little sister, but will be the equal, you know, be the adult sibling.
And I think as well, Ari, you know, and I think some of it kind of does, I think some of it or most of it probably falls on the league president, of course, between Laurel Richie and now Lisa Borders lately. But I think, though, you know, and I said this, I think last time we were on air last week, was, you know, I think that this season, maybe even a bit last year, but I think that Lisa Borders has done a good job this year, I think. Really, I think trying her best, you know, in a very, very, you know, small capacity to try to get the league some type of relevancy, either with the Twitter streams that will be ending, I think, on next Monday. I think that we're getting close to that. And also the FanDuel partnership has helped out. I guess, Ari, how, I guess, in your mind, when you heard about those 2 new things starting this season, was this what was your thoughts about, you know, the WNBA, you know, trying to, you know, stepping into the modern era, you know, either with the social media streams and also, of course, with daily fantasy sports now as well?
I've never been a big gambler or fantasy sports person, but I think it's amazing for the league. You know, you see what it's done to football, to other sports, all this stuff. It's going to help grow the league no matter how you look at it. So I don't think there's a negative way to look at the fantasy. You know, I have friends of friends who don't know anything about the W and never have watched a WNBA game until I force them to. And they've been betting on it all season because it's something to bet on. So it brings new people in. Twitter was, I mean, Jewel Lloyd, praise to her, because that was the greatest idea that the league's had in I don't know how long.
Yeah, 2 of the best. I think that they've done wonders this year, and the deal with Twitter going for the next couple of years. Todd Mitz back in the box. He says he has always felt a show like Inside Stuff that Ahmad Rashad used to host on NBA TV would be a good show for WNBA players. Many of these players have interest outside or interesting hobbies outside or off the court in regards to fashion taste or other work, etc. Would like to see these players promoted outside or off the court more than for just their game and everything else included.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Ari, what do you think about this?
Well, so I've teetered on both sides of it. On the one hand, I've been very vocal in criticizing Lisa Borders with, you know, there was a point during the season where when Sylvia Fowles was just going crazy and Diana Taurasi had just set the record and blah, blah, blah. And I'm scrolling through her Facebook feed and her Twitter feed, and I couldn't find, scrolling for like a couple minutes, I couldn't find one post by her or one article by her about the players being amazing athletes or good at basketball. All the posts were, and Angel McCautry has an ice cream shop, and, you know, Tamika Catchings has a tea shop, and, you know, this person's making clothing and this person's doing this and this. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. I get it. I respect it. And these people are more than just athletes. But to the same respect, if our main obstacle is people not viewing them as athletes and top tier athletes, then I don't necessarily think the higher ups in the league saying, oh, let's focus our very minuscule light on other aspects. Like, to me, it's just, I think it's more of I agree they are amazing and we should highlight that, and having a show like that would be amazing. And that would probably honestly be the best solution, because then you don't have everybody, you know, that singular spotlight. You know, make a show for it. If you want to hear about them, go there, connect to them. But also, these are freak athletes.
That's I think that's the best way to put it. They're freaks of nature, you know, and that's what they do.
And that's what athletes are.
Yeah, they do things very, very well out there. But again, possibly NBA TV goes that way. And Ari, you know, I mean, 3 years ago, I said that this would be like the NBA TV version for the WNBA, and by no means is that, because you're stuck hearing a guy repeat himself over and over again for 362 shows and everything else included. But I think, though, as I kind of look back on my on the network here real quick, again, this is our third year being here already. Oh my goodness gracious! We'll have show 365 coming up pretty soon. Very special one when we do have that. But Ari, I guess to kind of go back to your stuff again, folks, find Ari on Twitter. It's at WNBA Insider. Just it's INSIDR. There's no need for an E. But Ari, I guess as you again, because, you know, I got back into somewhat, or I was able to finally start watching the league again full time in 2013 when the Sparks got a new TV deal in Southern California, and then the next year we started this here as LAS 365 for just the Sparks and the spattering of WNBA stuff. Then about a year or so later, we rebranded ourselves. But Ari, this looks like though that ever since then, though, either engaging with you on the web or other people, it just looks like though that from there until now that it looks like more fans have been engaged either with websites for blogs. We've had more podcasts come out either from John and Cal with Links Radio. We've had a lot of other avenues outside of us and yourself. And Ari, I guess I don't want to say that we're like the two founding fathers of this. I mean, because Howard and David have been doing this a lot longer than we have, man. But I mean, as a fan and someone, of course, trying to get the league, you know, some type of publicity between both of us. You know, how I guess does it kind of make you feel, kind of seeing how league coverage has really, I guess, expanded from, you know, not just from newspapers or TV or radio, but into the hands and, you know, but into the palms of the hands of the fans itself, like us.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I'm insanely excited about it. You know, like when I started the website this year, I wanted to start it last year. There were some hiccups. When I started it this year, you know, I went online and I started to realize, oh, there's a ton of other blogs doing this, you know? Like I've been doing it smaller scale and writing small things, but now other people are doing this also, and that's amazing. You know, the other edge of the sword is, you know, you're just like the WNBA players. I don't want to be paid $1 million for what I'm doing. You know, like if I was, awesome, cool, that would be great. You know, I'm not going to say no to it. But at the end of the day, I'm not doing this for the notoriety. I'm doing it because I love the league. And I think this is something that so many other people are going to love. I will say one of the things that I probably realized I'll never get is, I'm sure you saw it, Diana Taurasi's bun, the Twitter handle, her, how she got to go and meet her. Yeah, and I'm literally sitting there like, maybe I picked the wrong avenue of this. Maybe I should have gone her way just so I could meet Simone Augustus, be friends with her, like get a photo. I will legitimately faint if I ever do meet her, by the way. Just saying, like, no joke.
Oh
thank
my
God she's never high-fived me because it would be embarrassing. But like, so yeah, there's like that double-edged sword. But like, I've realized at the end of the day, the people that I've met, the information that I'm getting, you know, and just like the excitement that I get from the league is more than enough than I could ask for. So like to see other people doing it just tells me that, you know, we have to be doing something right. If somebody is inspired or if somebody wants to do something similar, you know, it's two ways. Either you're getting hate, which means you're doing something right, or people copy you, so you're doing something right.
Oh man, Jess, I hope you had a good first day of school today. Hopefully, I hope the kids didn't give you too much trouble. I mean, I don't want to hold my breath. I mean, but hopefully all is well up in Reno, Nevada. And okay, so if that was to happen, Ari, just hypothetical here. So if you had an account like Jess, are you going to be Moan's dreads or Moan's tattoos? What would it have been?
So I thought about it, and it would definitely be Moan's dreads, because definitely. I don't know if you look at, and everybody should do this just because it's hilarious. If you look at her Twitter handle, on her bio, there's a link to her website, and her website is a background banner photo of like 8 different pictures of her, but they're all super young, and she has no tattoos, and she looks like a baby. She has the dreads, so it has to be like, I don't know. I think of a good pun, like give me money, or like Mo dreads for money, or like something with money, Mo and dreads. It would have been hilarious.
He'll work on it, I'm sure. Sure about that. But Ari, I guess, yeah. But I guess I know that I had followed you from my personal account, a while back, when I was looking through people to follow and stuff. And I guess when you probably followed us, either when we were LAS 365 or when you did see us after we rebranded, I guess, what I guess were your thoughts? Because obviously, I take a lot of my stuff from a show from input from the viewers, either changing start time or more ways to engage with the fan base. Again, we got over 1,200 people now, somehow, some way following us on Twitter. I can't believe that still. But Ari, I guess when you first watched us, maybe lay it on me. What'd you like or dislike, or what could we get better?
I gotta say,
how do you think about it now?
Big fan. I've loved the progression. I've seen you kind of like more focal in on what your thing is, what your niche is. I really like that. The fan engagement has been a huge thing for me, of an inspiration, just because the way that you say to them, okay, this is a community, in your own words, but like, this is a community. I want to hear what you have to say, because like it's not just about me. You know what I mean? And the way you said it just there, 1,200 followers or whatever it was. How did I get there? When I got 10 followers, I was like, why are 10 people following me? But the fact that you still have that mindset, that it hasn't gotten to your head, and it's still about the league. It's not about, hey, let's get a spotlight on my face, and I want everybody in the league and every coach to know me. Like, for the longest time when I was doing WNBA Insider, I tried to keep it a secret of who I was. Like, I didn't want my face involved. I didn't want people knowing I was a guy. I didn't want name or anything like that. And then I had a friend who got unemployed, and he's like, honestly, I really like what I've been following you. I work in, some media branding type stuff. I want to get involved. Get your face out there. Stop hiding. You shouldn't be ashamed. Like, and it wasn't like an ashamed thing. Just, I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be like the league, a community of discussing the league, So I love what you do. I mean, you literally are the inspiration of like, what I think most of these bloggers should be looking for. And the fact that you have closing on 365, that's huge. And let me tell you, if you guys don't know, it is a huge struggle to consistently get online to do live videos or, podcasts, or get articles and content out there. It is a struggle, and it's not a struggle because you don't want to do it. It's a struggle because it takes time, and you want it to look good and respectable. And you can't just go like, oh, I got 20 minutes right now. Cool, let's do this, and because it will look like that. So yeah. If you are doing that, then well done to you.
And thank you folks for hanging in here for 362 shows and everything else. And Ari, thanks as well. I don't consider myself a role model, but I mean, with me working in sports at the college level, the pro level, I mean, I work for two of the teams that are left in San Diego for pro sports, with hockey and soccer, and then with the Division II college. And of course, folks, as a reminder, I mean, as I do go back to work on Friday, hiatus period starts on Friday. We'll have some break-in stuff on Twitter, looking to again extend a bridge, and again we'll have some of that stuff coming your way on our Twitter account over the next couple of days, once we do in fact start our hiatus period on Friday. Ari, I guess any final thoughts you want to pass along, either about the games from Sunday or anything else, and also where can we where can all the good folks of the community follow you and find you on the web as well?
Yeah, I mean, my one thing is promote the league, keep pushing the league to get more gear out there. If you have WNBA gear, wear it. Don't be afraid to make your own, because I think if anything, being involved in social media and in the games, and you have your own gear, is a sign in itself. People want the gear and they're willing to make their own. I've made tons of really disgustingly ugly shirts for random WNBA teams when I go to them, just so I can be like, yeah, I'm a diehard fan, because the players deserve that, and keep supporting the league. If you want to follow me, as you've said a few times, at WNBA Insider, no E. And also we're on Facebook at WNBA Insider, no E. And online at www.WNBAinsider.com. Yeah. Got lots of content, hopefully more. Yeah.
Always remember that, folks. No E is necessary when you go and
find Ari to have a good time.
Yes, over on the web. With that, though, folks, we'll close out right here. We'll be back tomorrow for our final show before hiatus begins. Tip off of the show tomorrow night, 8:30 PDT, 11:30 Eastern time for tomorrow's program. Just the one game tomorrow on the schedule. With that, folks, for Ari Shorts, Comic Clerk signing off tonight. See you folks back here mañana. Good night. Bye-bye.